I'm here to talk about the medical system and what it done to my daughter. As a young woman, a healthy young woman, they damaged her birth by delaying her birth. And the next time she went into the hospital, they ended her life in 41 days. I took Danielle in for a cough. She was sick the week before, and she was healthy. We treated her at home. The fever left, and Danielle takes a lot of vitamins. She's on everything you could think about. I always took good care of her. And I was concerned for the cold because this cough, I never heard my daughter cough like that. And my husband and I, we decided, let's call the neighbor who's a doctor and see what he says. So he says, I'll let you bring her into the hospital. I'll call you in so you have special privileges so I could stay with my daughter. Right away, in the emergency room, they said she have COVID pneumonia. Before they even admitted my daughter, which had normal vitals, a medical report would show that. All the reports showed she was breathing normally, she was talking, eating, the chest was clear, the sound of her breath was clear, normal white blood count, a little bit of high blood pressure because she's very anxious about getting stick with a needle. And they started on Remdesivir. I did not know about Remdesivir. They never told me, I'm going to start your daughter on Remdesivir. I later found out she had 10 rounds of Remdesivir. And it's a tragic story because a medical hospital in America, we are taught that is a place to go for healing. But now I realize the industrial complex is there to profit off of your life. So while I was there in the hospital, they said only for 2 to 3 days she'll be there. So I was there. 3 days later, I said, what are they doing? When are we going home? My daughter wanted to go home. And they have her hooked up to an IV and telling me it's just to treat her for pneumonia. But in the medical records, they admitted my daughter as having sepsis and hypoxia. And she had normal white blood count. So how could you admit her falsely like that? And I only found this out later on. It's a little hard to talk about it. So while we were there, they call him the ventilator maestro, Dr. Ramanu. He's known as the ventilator maestro in the hospital. They took her in. They said, we need to bring her in for observation because, mommy, this window here in the door is just very small. But if she goes into the ICU, we'll have all the windows, we could see her. And I'm thinking, okay, it's good. All right, I agree to it. Right away, they took off her pajamas and I saw more machines came in and they said she has to use a bedpan. My daughter never used a bedpan before in her life.
Yeah.
And Dr. Drew, if you have pneumonia, you would sit up, they would give you breathing exercises. Danielle was told she cannot get off the bed. She have to lay down flat. And the next day,
you know what happened? I know exactly what this was, is they were busy treating the numbers. This is how people ended up on ventilators all the time. They were comfortably, they called them the happy hypoxic. They were there with low concentration of oxygen in their blood and perfectly comfortable. And no one was given any other treatment than, get them on a ventilator right away. And that is where they harmed a lot of people. So I'm guessing, have you examined the records?
Yes, I had the records examined by several medical experts. A nurse of 42 years, when she read the record, she was crying. She had nightmares. And when she told me what she saw, I was beside myself because I'm like, how in the world? Danielle should never have been admitted. Her lungs were clear. She was breathing, talking, walking. And
it's just prepare yourself. It's the hypoxia they're going to focus on because COVID did cause hypoxia, but that's treating numbers, not the patient, right? If you don't mind, I want to ask Alix if I'm on to anything here, if that's what you're sort of seeing in the records.
She did not enter the hospital with hypoxia, actually. So this is why this case is such a big deal. This is not a medical misconduct or medical malpractice lawsuit. This is a willful misconduct lawsuit. And they basically saw Danielle. They'd received $1.2 billion to Northwell Hospital just in 2020 to enact all the protocols that were required for lockdowns, the ventilation, the remdesivir, and all the rest of it, and the COVID diagnosis. And they had to meet their numbers to keep their PrEP Act funds. And that was $1.2 billion. So what they did when they saw Danielle come in there with her mother, Rebecca, they saw her as an ATM. They didn't see a patient. And this has to stop.
I'm looking right now at her medication list that Caleb sent me. They had her completely zonked on Propofol for one thing, which again, why? I mean, you know, and this went on for quite a while. How long was she on a ventilator for?
32 days.
32 days? Yeah, I wonder what that does to your lungs.
Yeah, and because she kept taking out the IV lines, she kept taking off the ventilator mask, they kept sedating her more. Propofol is what killed Michael Jackson. Yeah. Precedex is a paralytic to paralyze her. At one point, they secured her to the bed so she couldn't take those things off of her. She wanted to be out of there. She didn't want to be there.
That's rough, man.
She died with more than 5 times as much fentanyl in her system as George Floyd.
Yeah, when I look at some of the management of some of these cases, was this early in the pandemic?
No, this was 2021. Danielle is very strong and very healthy. She rarely gets sick, so she did not need to be admitted to the hospital.
Gosh, it's weird. They were using Versed and fentanyl. I mean, just Versed and fentanyl itself together would make you not breathe. Right, and that makes you dependent on the ventilator, and then propofol on top of that, which like wildly.
So, Dr. Drew, what they were doing?
Did you?
Sorry, they used the drugs to get their numbers that they needed to cause the hypoxia, to cause the organ failure, and then they blamed it on COVID when it was the drugs they were giving her.
I understand what you're saying, but there was a number of doctors involved here. I'm seeing some of their participation, and not everyone, you know, somebody should have raised their hand and went, hey, what's going on here? But they were so, but you remember, there was so much groupthink going on at the time. They were just, and doctors were not allowed to even make decisions on their own. There were just these protocols, and they were just required to follow the protocols. Rebecca, did they allow you to come in to visit your daughter?
Okay, so I was with Danielle for the first 5 days. And I said, after we went into the ICU, the next day he came in and started talking about the ventilator. And I said, she's not going on the ventilator. So I asked the next day, could I just go home and shower? I'm 8 minutes away. And as soon as I left to go home, when they told me I could come back, that's when I got the phone call, I can't come back into the hospital. And from there was no contact with my daughter. There was no iPad to use. My daughter
Alex,
was
what do we do
scared
about
to
that?
death.
That is crazy to me, but go ahead.
Well, they were separating people in 2021 and 2020 in the hospitals, but Danielle was a special case. She was special needs, and according to the ADA, she needed a guardian with her at all times to make decisions. She was not capable of making decisions for her in her everyday life. And so barring Rebecca from the hospital and not even letting her have a companion there was another part of this case that is completely illegal.
Gosh, it seems to me the American with Disabilities Act may be where you find more traction than anywhere else with this whole thing, because people are very sympathetic usually to that. Although God knows with the way people defend COVID. Well, let's switch gears for a little bit. And Alex, you have a Substack also, right?
I do. alixmayer.substack.com.
And it's Alix is Alix Mayer. Talk to me about medical freedom. I'm guessing that your Substack, you're addressing that. And Rebecca, I apologize. I'm stepping off your daughter's case for a second. But I'm grave. I sort of see there's a lot of bad things going on here, right? Bad judgment, bad behavior, doctors falling in line and not, using their judgment. And to me, medical freedom is a big theme in a situation like this. What do you see as your task as someone advocating for medical freedom, and what can be done?
Well, it's a big topic. And as everybody knows, our medical freedom and our freedoms were taken away in 2020 and 2021 because of COVID and the lockdown measures. And that was the first time people really started to understand what the concept of medical freedom was. And part of medical freedom is also getting the ability to be informed and the ability to consent, yes or no. So I don't even like the term informed consent, even though that's the term that's normally used. I want to call it informed choice, because once you're informed, you should have a choice of what you want to do after you know the risks and benefits of a treatment. And that especially includes vaccines, because once you get vaccine injured, like I was in the 1990s, you can't undo it. I've spent 30 years trying to recover from the disability that the vaccines gave me in the mid-1990s when I was running a worldwide group for Apple. My MBA became worthless at the time. I lost my job to a medical leave that I never returned from. It's a travesty.
Tell me what happened. That's another piece of story I wanted to get into. So there was a brain injury of some type?
Yeah. I got 6 vaccines to go on a vacation with my family. It was while I was working at Apple in my 20s. I'd just been promoted to running a worldwide research group. And when I was in Bali, a couple weeks later, my legs turned into noodles. I collapsed. And then I came back from that trip and I thought I had jet lag. And the jet lag, in quotes, lasted weeks and then months. And finally, I was like, I don't think this is jet lag. And then I kept sleeping 16 hours a day, but still trying to go in and do my job. I loved my job. I'm a workaholic and I absolutely loved working at Apple, but I was eking out maybe 2-4 hours a day and, barely getting by with that. But 6 to 7 months after those vaccines, that was about January of 1997. And this is literally 30 years ago, guys. I picked up the Wall Street Journal, which is what, the MBA likes to do. We like to read the Wall Street Journal every day. And I did back then. And I didn't understand what I was reading. I picked another article. I didn't understand that one. And I thought, oh, there's 2 bad authors in the Wall Street Journal today. And, I'm a researcher. So by the time I got to the third one, the pattern recognition set in. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've lost my ability to think and remember. I have to have a medical leave of absence now at the urging of my doctor and family. And so I finally took that medical leave of absence. And it took me a long time to recover. And I'm still not fully recovered. I struggle with the vaccine injury every day, 30 years later.
Interesting. I wish we had more research on exactly what that was. I have seen some proteomic research that suggests, it's just something I came upon, and it helped me with my long COVID, that the temporal lobe is where a lot of this injury occurs, and working on music and language might help clear some of that stuff or improve it. You found anything like that?
That's so interesting you said that. I live near Stanford University, and I ended up taking almost a dozen courses in writing and started a blog way back in 2005. And that's how I had my brain recovery. It wasn't the speech therapy lady who came over to my house and gave me this little plastic thing where I was supposed to move cars around to improve my brain. It was actually the writing.
Yeah, there's something about language and music that viral related, in which the vaccines are clearly viral related injuries. It helps. And I've not seen literature on this. I've just had some experiences with it. Well, what do you want people to know and do? What should we have a lot of sort of concerned viewers about maintaining their own freedom. It's why I'm involved with the TWC, the wellness company, because they're big medical freedom organization. And I really feel people should have access to what they want safely, obviously. But, we found out during COVID that they could shut everything down. And all of a sudden your access to healthcare is either cut off or it's adulterated in some way. So what should people be doing?
I think everybody needs to be aware that there are issues with vaccine safety and hospital safety right now. And in both instances, you really need to do your research. Before you go into a hospital, make sure that you have medical power of attorney assigned to somebody you trust to help make medical decisions for you if you can't make them yourself. And always have somebody with you, whether you're going to a medical appointment for anything, including vaccines, but especially if you're going to be going to the hospital. You go to the urgent care, you go to the emergency room, you have someone with you and they do not leave your side, because it's less likely that something like what happened to Danielle could happen to you if you have a companion.
I will tell you what, guys, if they had not eviscerated primary care, internal medicine, family practice, general practice, that kind of thing. If they had not eviscerated those disciplines, those would be the ombudsman. Those would be the professionals helping you, watching you, navigating it with you. But they're gone. They've just destroyed that part of medicine. Rebecca, what do you want people to know?
Well, I want people to know that what's happened to my daughter, it happened to you. Because she was innocent. She was a functional girl. She used to volunteer at Sunrise Assisted Living. She was treated worse than a criminal. I mean, they isolated her and drug her. I don't know any criminal on death row was ever treated the way my daughter was. I want them to support my case through Free Now Foundation. It's very important. It's one of the most important cases, and we're hoping that it will pierce the PrEP Act, because most cases get thrown out of court because of the PrEP Act. But my daughter deserves justice. I fought for her all her life, and I cannot let this go.
And Dr. Drew, this is the really, this is the really important part of this case. Because of the PrEP Act protections, these doctors at this hospital could do all of this with seeming impunity, except in one instance, willful misconduct. And this is a willful misconduct case. And this is not only going to get justice for Danielle, this is going to mean that she becomes a martyr, because her life is going to mean that we make hospitals safer going forward. Because people don't know this, but you get diagnosed with any condition that's listed in the PrEP Act right now, COVID, Ebola, whatever it is, hantavirus, and you go in the hospital, they can do this to you under the PrEP Act with seeming impunity. So we're going to change that through this lawsuit for everyone.
I hope you have great success with this. I would argue that's what pissed me off about the university and colleges that forced vaccines on young males who had no risk from COVID and got myocarditis and pericarditis and whatnot. They were immune because of PrEP Act too. So that's where I've been very, very concerned about the qualified immunity essentially that PrEP brings. And it doesn't make sense. It's got to go. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Tell me one more time where you want people to go, Alix.
Go to freenowfoundation.org and make a donation to this case to make Danielle's life worth it, to make her a martyr instead of a victim, and to make hospitals safer for everyone. And please write the word Danielle or Rebecca in memory of.
And Rebecca, I'm so sorry that you had to go through all this, but hopefully this will not have happened in vain. Totally in vain, unfortunately. Thank you so much, ladies.